On screen are some designs for desert enemies that I've been working on, inspired by Egyptian artifacts and mummies and things like that. These were all done basically entirely in the drawing app Leonardo, which I have found to be immensely fun for designing things like this. It makes me feel undistracted and like I should just solve all my problems by drawing and designing better, which is, of course, always what I'm looking for. These sketches are vaguely kinda for a project, something that I'm working on with a collaborator, but they're too complicated to be directly usable for that project. That project just gave me the design criteria of needing some dark fantasy enemies to fight in a desert region. Beyond that, I just wanted to have fun painting some stuff, and I let myself go nuts, and I was adding more metal and armor than you'd see in more grounded Egyptian-based designs. You'll notice that I started these sketches on a black background, and that's something I've been enjoying doing lately for single asset designs like this. I think that's because of particular things about my process and how I use certain elements of art, so I'm not sure that it would jive with you, but I think it can be worth a shot if you work like me. The first thing that I like about it is that for some reason, starting on black makes me naturally think in shape as opposed to line. I don't know why that is, because rationally speaking, I should be just as inclined to draw light lines on a black background as I am to draw dark lines on a light background. Maybe it's just because of a lifetime of drawing on white paper with pencil that when I see white, I think thin black line. The black background may just give me enough of an unfamiliar pause that it makes me reevaluate my habits, and so I can do something different right at the beginning. But whatever the reason, yeah, on black I naturally start by putting down bigger blobby shapes, and it feels more unnatural to throw thin lines, which can be really good for some character design purposes, because sometimes you want to focus on big, basic shapes. Second thing that I like about it is that working on black makes very dark colors you paint with seem more colorful. That really works for me, because I naturally pick dark colors when I'm starting in on something. I think I understand the reason for that. I'm a form-based artist. That's my favorite element of art and the one that I have the deepest relationship with. And color and form have a little bit of an opposing relationship. They're not enemies, so to speak. Form and color are one and the same in nature, after all, but they definitely do a bit of a balancing act. You see, form is created through value variety, gradations, and things like that. And that fights with bright saturated colors a bit, because bright saturated colors only obtain and maintain that peak saturation at a particular value. When you modulate that value, then you're veering away from that peak saturation. This is why the Impressionists famously eschewed form in many of their works, so that they could let open, large shapes of color obtain to their maximum impact. Lots of interesting theory and history there. But for me, it's really as simple as just, I don't really think in color like some artists do. I think in form. When building form, I like to start with the darks and build up to light slowly, slowly, slowly. And that's probably from all of the hours spent with a pencil. So the result of all these preferences is that I like to start dark and desaturated to build up to the lights and to the saturated accent colors slowly, slowly, slowly. This can be a bit of a new way to think if you've never tried it before, but once you get used to it, it's very fun. Back to the main point. When you work on the black background, it makes colors that you pick from the bottom of the color picker actually feel light and read as belonging to their hue family when you put them down on the canvas. This doesn't really happen when working on a light background until you're much deeper into the process. On a white background, basically anything that you apply from the bottom fourth of the color picker just reads as black due to contrast with the pure white background, with maybe a lean towards warm or cool for the sensitive eye. This doesn't change until later when you add in the dark accents, usually pure black, near these dark colors to reveal their true nature when compared to that black. When working on a black background, you get that effect the whole time. Even near black colors feel lit up and reveal their hue when they go down against the extremeness of pure black. And, luckily, I find the top of the value range doesn't lose its effectiveness in this regard either. The light colors really leap off and also hold to their hue family. Now, it's not like there aren't cons to working like this. The main one should be obvious. Because the black ground is making even midtones seem tremendously luminous, it's likely that your final image is going to wind up very dark in the end, since you'll feel less of a need to reach for the top of the value range. At one point near the end of working on these guys, I cut them out and pasted them on a white background just to test it, and they instantly transformed into silhouettes. All the painting and colors and details seem to vanish. I'm definitely still trying to learn how to balance this, but I'm confident that with time and experience, I will naturally find that balance. I think it may come down to an intuitive awareness of how much time I'm spending picking colors from what portion of the color picker. I need a little alarm to go off in my head to tell me, hey, maybe spend the next 10 minutes of painting picking colors from the top third of the color picker. I currently don't have that alarm, and I spend the vast majority of time on things like this, picking from the bottom 50% of the value range, occasionally jumping up to grab a near white for a highlight. So those are the technique considerations. The rest of the process is, of course, just design decision-making, draftsmanship decisions, and painting away. I was trying to focus on practicing a particular thing on these though, and that's pattern. I've really been wanting to improve my use of pattern. It's a big weak spot for me, I think. It's something I've been thinking about for the past year or two, actually, that I want to improve my use of two things, pattern and texture. From my perspective, you don't need to do anything fancy to do that improvement though. For me, the best way to improve at such things is to simply consciously deploy them more often. I think for a lot of artists, it's not so much that you're bad at pattern or whatever element, it's just that you don't use it when you know it would improve certain passages or designs. So, to improve at pattern or texture is to just consciously push them forward and let them drive a design a little bit more every now and then. In doing so, I hope I'll occasionally get a design I really like that thrives on its use of pattern. And when that happens, I have faith it will incentivize me to try patterns out in future designs because I want that rush of success again. I'll keep coming around looking for another hit. At least, that's the hope. Research-wise on these, I found Google searches for ancient Egyptian artifacts and things like that were returning the same results over and over again, as generic searches like that usually do. I found much more inspirational and instructive references by watching a few documentaries on YouTube, specifically ones about new museums opening in Egypt, and one really good one about old artifacts being studied using new imaging techniques. That had a lot of close-ups on details, and best of all, they actually explained the details, what figures, symbols, and props meant in the images. Some of it was super cool. We're talking ancient fantasy lore level stuff, like King Tut's royal dagger being made out of meteoric ore. I mean, that's straight out of a fantasy novel, but that's real. On the topic of finish, I didn't need these to hit some super high refined level. I just wanted them all to be about the same level. I think as long as they're consistent, it's okay to present them together as a group. When I got them together to post on Instagram, I presented them all on a sheet together at the end of the post, and I showed individual shots and close-ups of the 4 that I felt were most consistent with each other. Unfortunately, when it comes to design, usually the best thing you can do is edit, 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 edit. You want 20 great characters? Do 40 and then cut the field in half. Instagram is dead lately, don't you think? So many people have said it, but it really seems true. No one seems excited on there anymore. And I've noticed the interactions and comments on the posts of really big artists I greatly admire steadily decreasing over time. I think all the AI worries really did have an effect on it. But honestly, it was hurting before that. The way it limits your reach to your own audience unless you pay is really aggressive. I don't know, I guess I don't watch Reels. I just scroll the traditional feed, so for all I know, it's very alive in the Reels section, but whatever. I guess I'm just sick of all socials. They're all bad, I think. I think they're making everybody's brain worse. I mean, TikTok was cool for a minute, but even TikTok is now just completely bloated with ads and AI content. You know what, now that I think about it? No, maybe TikTok was never cool. Okay, there I go. I'm old man ranting. But hey, that's my right. I'm a dad now. I'm allowed to be crotchety. But I'll take it as my cue to get off of here and go snuggle my son instead. Take care, everybody, and happy drawing.